Pittsburgh Steelers secure the victory in Dublin this morning with a final score of 24-21, defeating the Minnesota Vikings. And honestly, guys, this game wasn't really close. I know the score at the end of the day was just 3 points, and there's a lot of different reasons why that was. We'll talk about those on today's show. But the Pittsburgh Steelers had their most complete performance, both sides of the football, that they have had throughout this season. And as this season goes on, guys, the good news if you're a Steelers fan is that this team just continues to get better. Don't miss a post-game show this year here on Steelers Talk. Next week, of course, the Steelers are on bye, so no post-game show next week. But make sure you guys click that subscribe button, because whenever the Steelers play a football game this year, we're going to have a post-game reaction show for you guys on this channel for you guys to enjoy and kind of unwind as the rest of the NFL day goes on. Now, let's get into this final here. 24-21, Steelers had a really nice performance today. Really good day on the ground. Kenneth Gainwell comes in with Jalen Warren with a surprise inactive today, gets nearly 100 yards rushing on 19 carries and 2 touchdowns. Count them, 2, baby. Then you got DK Metcalf exploding onto the scene in the first half of this football game. 5 catches for 126 yards, and including an 80-yard touchdown reception on a dig route from Aaron Rodgers. An absolutely beautiful play, probably my favorite player from the Pittsburgh Steelers so far this season. Aaron Rodgers, another really efficient day, 18 of 22 for 200 yards and a touchdown. Honestly, he's been really good to start this season. I'm really happy we decided to bring in Aaron Rodgers this year. And then the defense did a really good job on Carson Wentz and the Vikings for the most part. Later in the game, they started playing a little bit softer, a little bit more bend, don't break, and the Vikings were able to get 2 late touchdowns, but the Steelers made the stop that they needed to at the end of the game, as they usually do, and the Steelers end up coming away with a victory. Now we'll start here with some injury updates for you guys. Here from the man himself, Calvin Austin III left this game with a shoulder injury. He said, "Great dub in Dublin. I'm all good, Steelers Nation. Appreciate the messages and concerns." Now, just because Calvin says that he's good, we'll have to see what the actual injury is. The fact that he's saying that he's good probably means it's not like a broken collarbone or something like that, or something might be like an AC joint sprain or something that he can play through. The fact that he's so positive coming out of this game tells us that this is probably something that he can come back from and play at some point this season. But it's certainly possible that, this could be maybe a month-long injury and he has to miss some time. And right now, when you look at the Steelers wide receiver depth chart, who's really ready to step up into that role? Today, Roman Wilson had 3 snaps. Count them, 3 today. All right, when Calvin Austin went down with his injury, it was Scotty Miller that was coming up and taking those snaps in this offense. All right, so does this team really trust Roman Wilson to take on that quote-unquote number 2 wide receiver moniker? And if not, do they trust somebody like a Scotty Miller or maybe an Isaiah Hodgins, who they signed to the practice squad a couple of weeks ago? Do they think about making one of those guys the number 2 receiver moving forward? And could they also consider bringing in a wide receiver? That is certainly a possibility as well. And I would have to say, guys, if Pittsburgh makes a move at receiver, I think Calvin is probably going to be out for at least a little while, at least a couple of weeks. There's not a whole lot of great options out there, if I'm being completely honest with you. The best receiver available is probably Deontay Johnson, who obviously is really well familiar with the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. Getting a route runner like him might actually work out, but obviously they traded him away for a reason. It's because they didn't love his locker room presence. They didn't like the influence he was having on George Pickens at the time. Now we have a new leader in this wide receiver room. It's DK Metcalf, who's an excellent mentor and leader for this group. So maybe they feel like Deontay Johnson, in a true number 2 receiver role, can come in and maybe play that role. Also, Odell Beckham Jr., definitely keep your eye on OBJ. He says he's had conversations with the Steelers in the past. He's good friends with Aaron Rodgers about talking about playing for the Steelers this year. So it would not surprise me if this team brings in OBJ, but also Nelson Aguilar, DJ Chark, and hey, even bringing back Robert Woods could be a possibility at this point. Of course, Woods knows the playbook. He has a little bit of chemistry with Rodgers, working with him during the preseason and training camp. So we'll have to see on the wide receiver front here, guys. But some more injury updates here. Nick Farabaugh from Penn Live reported today that Steelers cornerback Brandon Echols is okay, and there's no concern about him going forward. He just had a really bad cramping in his calves, so Echols left the game late. It's good to know that that's just cramping and that he's going to be good to go once this team gets back from bye. And then maybe a little bit more concerning here, Jalen Ramsey left this game and was coming back in and out of the game because he had his hamstring tighten up on him mid-game today. So obviously we want to keep him healthy, and these hamstring injuries can be pretty fickle. He was able to get back into the game which is good news. The fact that it's not severe enough where it took him out of the game immediately and he could play, that is good news if you are a Pittsburgh Steelers fan and you're looking for Jalen Ramsey to be out there on the field. It'll be interesting to see here if that hamstring can heal up enough in time for the Browns game in Week 6. But even if not, I think that if you're going to ask Jalen Ramsey to miss a game, it would be against that Cleveland Browns offense and still get away with it. So hopefully he can be back by the time we play Cincinnati in Week 7, or at the very least Green Bay in Week 8 on Sunday Night Football. Now, still to come here on the Steelers Talk post-game show, my Week 4 game balls and takeaways. I actually have more game balls than takeaways to give out on today's post-game show, which is not usually the norm. But before we get into the rest of this post-game show here on Steelers Talk, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Omaha Steaks. From handcrafted steaks to delicious fall favorites, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience. Enjoy USDA-certified tender steaks, juicy burgers, cozy and convenient comfort meals, plus tailgating favorites like chicken wings, smash burgers, and big deli-style franks. And now during their Red Hot Sale event, you can get 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $35 off with promo code STEELERS at checkout. Now, just to give you guys an idea of what you're going to see when you go to the Omaha Steaks website, they have a bunch of different assortments for you guys to choose from. Here, the Classic Favorites assortment has 22 total items of premium quality meat, which is usually priced at around $265. That gets cut in half because of the Red Hot Sale event, and then you get an additional $35 off when you use our code STEELERS. So for an assortment here that used to be over $265, you can get that now for less than $100 when you use our promo code STEELERS at checkout. Get fired up for fall grilling with Omaha Steaks today. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their Red Hot Sale event, and for an extra $35 off, use promo code STEELERS at checkout. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com, plus an extra $35 off with promo code STEELERS at checkout. See site for details. A big thank you to Omaha Steaks for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. First game ball goes to the big man himself, DK Metcalf. You pay him all that money to have performances like this. And frankly, this is what we should be getting used to as Pittsburgh Steelers fans. 5 catches, 124 yards, including an explosive touchdown reception. These are the kinds of performances that we are used to seeing and what we are expecting out of a receiver that is getting as much money as DK Metcalf is getting per season. And listen, man, I hope that when the Steelers watch the film over the bye week here and they see DK Metcalf, you know, his best plays have come from crossing routes and from dig routes and from shallow crosses and, you know, the getting him the ball in space. You know, it just reminded me so much of A.J. Brown in Tennessee when he would take all those dig routes and those slant routes to the house under Arthur Smith in that Titans offense. And, you know, there's been a lot of flack that the Steelers offense has taken this week about not throwing the ball over the middle of the field. Well, guess what? They threw it over the middle a lot more today. DK Metcalf was a big part of that. They put him in the slot more. They put him more on crossing routes and on digs and, you know, getting him the ball over the middle of the field today. Also had a 50-50 ball win, had a catch on a screen as well. Averaged 25 yards per catch today, and of course added another touchdown. That is now his 3rd touchdown on the year. So great to see DK Metcalf fill up the stat sheet in Dublin today. Then Kenneth Gainwell, man, you talk about somebody stepping up into a big spot. Jalen Warren has pretty much been this Steelers offense through the first 3 weeks of the year. And when he was inactive, there's a lot of Steelers fans before the game saying this game's already over. All right, this game, we can't win without Jalen Warren. Well, Kenneth Gainwell went in there, and he was excellent. Now, I think the run blocking was a lot better than weeks past. We'll talk about the O-line and some of the reasons why that was here in just a second. But Gainwell definitely took his opportunities. He ran hard today, nearly 100 yards on the ground. And for your backup running back to be able to do that, absolutely fantastic stuff from Kenneth Gainwell in Dublin this morning. Couldn't have asked for much more from KG. Then we get to Darnell Washington, and Connor Hayward was talking with reporters after the game, and they were asking why the run game was so much better today. And he said it was because they were running in the direction that Darnell Washington was blocking. And personally, I can't wait to watch the film tomorrow and watch Darnell Washington run block. I think that the Steelers need to be using this guy more, especially on early downs. They have to be running towards his side of the formation, and he just displaces people in the run game. He also made a couple nice catches and a couple decent runs after the catch as well. using Darnell Washington more can only mean good things for the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. It was nice to see him use him in that way today. Then we get to the entire offensive line. Just kudos to these guys, and also kudos and credit where credit's due to Pat Meyer for getting these guys to play at a level that is expected from the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were moving the line of scrimmage. They dominated the line of scrimmage on the offensive side of the ball for most of the game. There was a couple of mistakes, and we'll talk about those in the takeaways here, but I thought the entire offensive line did a really good job today, moving the line of scrimmage, creating run lanes for Kenny G to take advantage of, and overall just a really good performance from the entire offensive line, in my opinion, today. Then we get to the defensive side of the ball with some of our game balls here, and we'll start with another guy that's been taking a lot of ire from Steelers fans lately, including myself, and that's Keanu Benton. And I think Benton, over the last few weeks, has been a lot better in run defense, and he was really, really good getting after Carson Wentz as a pass rusher today. The thing about Keanu Benton, guys, is that he's a disruptor. And when you allow him to disrupt and shoot gaps and get after the quarterback, he can be a really, really good player for this Steelers defense. He showed that off today. He had a sack and a half. He had 3 QB hits. He was in the backfield all day long. He was making Wentz super uncomfortable. And everybody knows, any quarterback hates to see that interior color flash from the opposing team, especially early in his passing progression. And today, that was certainly happening a lot with Keanu Benton up the middle. But then there was also pressure on the outside. There was nowhere for Carson Wentz to be able to hide because Nick Herbig around the edge was absolutely fantastic yet again, pressuring Carson Wentz time and time and time again, using him on stunts extremely effectively. Nick Herbig today had 3 QB hits today. Fantastic stuff. Also got the quarterback on the ground a number of times. And, for somebody that's coming in as a third rotational edge rusher, stepping into a full-time starting spot with Alex Highsmith out with injury, you couldn't ask for much more than what Nick Herbig is giving you right now. He's an ultimate disruptor. He's one of the best speed rushers in the National Football League today, and he absolutely made mincemeat out of one of the best left tackles in the game today in Christian Darrisaw. I think the Steelers need to find a way to keep Nick Herbig on the field, even when Alex Highsmith gets back from his injury. All right, then we get to Peyton Wilson. And listen, man, talk about your guys that we have trashed on this channel. Peyton Wilson did not have a good first 2 weeks, all right? There's no bones about that. But Peyton Wilson made an awesome tackle at the end of the game, saving a touchdown at the end of it there. On a blown coverage. I mean, he could have just stopped running and allowed them to run into the end zone. He didn't do that. He stopped them at the 1-yard line, which forced the Vikings to take up some more clock. He had 13 tackles today. He was all over the place. He made a couple really nice plays in the backfield as well. He was very disruptive. And the thing about Peyton Wilson is he's so disruptive that he's going to get into the backfield a lot. He's going to put yourself in position to give up some big plays and be out of position at times. But when he's right, it looks absolutely fantastic. Today, he was right a lot more than he was wrong. So good for Peyton Wilson, a big bounce-back game for P-Dub there. Then the final game ball here goes to Deshaun Elliott, who returned to the lineup this week. It's just great to see him back out there, man. He had a couple really nice pass deflections. You could really tell that he was affecting the passing game in coverage. He was doing a good job in run defense as well, bringing guys down. He had 4 total tackles today for 2 PBUs, and he also had an interception. So really great performance from Deshaun Elliott. This defense really missed his presence, and have him back out there, man, it just made this Steelers defense look, just visually, just watching the game, it looked different out there with Deshaun Elliott as this team's strong safety. Really happy he's back in the fold. So who's your MVP? Let me know down there in the comment section. Who was today's MVP for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Who are you giving the MVP trophy to? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. And then we get into my takeaways here. I've got 6 of them for you guys before we head out. Number 1, not even Mike Tomlin's terrible game management could ruin this football game. All right, the Steelers played so well on both sides of the ball that, even though Mike Tomlin wanted to kick a field goal up 10 when you were at the 2-yard line and a touchdown would have put them away, not only did Arthur Smith call a run play on that 4th down and goal from the 3-yard line, which is a terrible play call when you have one of the best red zone quarterbacks in the National Football League. Also calling a timeout before the onside kick. Like, what are we doing there, man? Like Tomlin was just trying his best to botch this football game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's one of his weaknesses, I would say, is game management. He doesn't manage games particularly well, which is crazy because he's the longest tenured head coach. He has the most experience out of any head coach in the NFL at this stuff, and he still can't seem to get it right. But nonetheless, the team played well enough today to get the job done. But then we get to Rodgers, who was really good yet again today. I think Rodgers, throughout the first 4 weeks, has just done what has been asked of him, man. Completing passes, being smart with the football, getting the offense in and out of the right play. And then, really being good in the red zone as well. He threw a beautiful seed over the middle of the field to DK Metcalf, hit him in stride so that he could keep that head of steam. And once DK had that head of steam, guys, nobody was catching him. Also, shout out to Calvin Austin III on that block down the field for him that led to the touchdown. But Rodgers, even though he only threw it 22 times today, didn't have to throw it that many times to be able to get the victory. I think that he's playing really good football right now. And when things are there, he is making the most of it, all right? He's not the type of guy that's going to make something out of nothing anymore like a Mahomes or an Allen or a Lamar. But Aaron Rodgers has proven time and time again through the first month of the season that if you give him something, all right, he's going to execute. And that's what the Steelers need out of their starting quarterback. And it's definitely a breath of fresh air compared to what we have had here in Pittsburgh over the last several years. And then shifting over to the defensive side of the ball here, at least through these last 2 weeks, guys, their bend, don't break style of defense has worked, all right? I talked about it in our preview. I talked about it before the game this week. I expected the Steelers to kind of, try and limit big plays, try to keep everything in front of you, and then make Carson Wentz play a methodical game. Now, Carson Wentz had over 350 yards passing today. He was really slinging it. But, when the Steelers need to make a stop, they did. They sacked him a bunch of times today. They intercepted him twice in this football game. It could have been more than that. It could have been another forced fumble as well. This Steelers defense is like the king right now in the National Football League of allowing teams to kind of get yardage, but then take the football away and force mistakes. So you got to give them credit. I don't think that this style of defense is necessarily going to work against Lamar Jackson in Baltimore or the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen and quarterbacks that aren't as mistake-prone as Carson Wentz and Drake May are. So you're going to have to kind of elevate your game in that way, but there's no doubt about it. This Steelers defense is the best at creating turnovers in the entire National Football League. Then we get to the offensive line here, which is that Isaac Seumalo needs to figure it out, man. He allowed 2 very quick pressures that led to 2 sacks on Aaron Rodgers today. Those appeared to me, at least on first watch, to be his fault. I'll correct that if this tape tells me something different. But Seumalo's had a little bit of a rocky start to start this season, in my opinion. He's the veteran in this group. He's supposed to be the one that knows what to do all the time, and frankly, that hasn't been the case through the first few weeks. So hopefully Seumalo doesn't continue that downward spiral as the season goes on, and he can stabilize a little bit. But then another takeaway that I have here, guys, is that, this team does not trust Roman Wilson out there, guys. They just don't. I mean, what really showed me this was that Calvin Austin III gets injured, and then they have Scotty Miller out there as the number 2 receiver for the rest of the game. Roman Wilson was out there for only 3 snaps the entire football game, despite the fact that one of your starting receivers ended up getting injured. All right, so this team doesn't trust Roman Wilson at all, in my opinion. It'll be interesting to see if they add another receiver, try to get them onboarded here, whether it's Deontay Johnson, whether it's Odell Beckham Jr., whether they make a trade for somebody. It's definitely going to be interesting because I don't think the answer at wide receiver 2 for them is going to be Roman Wilson. Then my final takeaway here, guys, is to enjoy the win, but to not overreact, all right? I think that this was a very well-played football game for the Pittsburgh Steelers today. I think they won the trenches on both sides of the ball, which is what you want to see. But at the same time, there was a lot of injuries to that Vikings offensive line, so that's the way your pass rush is supposed to look against those guys. And then if there's pressure on Carson Wentz, I don't think any of us expect him to do too much, right? So just taking that into account, I think that the offense, there's a lot of great things to take away from that. The Vikings defense was mostly healthy for this one, and I thought the Steelers did a really good job. Run game, pass game, it all was complimentary. It all looked really good. I thought Arthur Smith ran a really good game, and this team is getting better. Enjoy the win. Enjoy the 3-1 start. But let's be real here, man. That Vikings team was banged up. They were definitely down for the count, and the Steelers did what they were supposed to do today, which was take care of business. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. Grade today's performance from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Give me an A, B, C, D, or F down there in the comment section. For me, I'm going to have to give this one an A-. They certainly tried to give this game away at the very end. The Vikings had an opportunity to drive down the field and maybe tie it at the end, but the Steelers defense, despite the injuries, despite all the media noise over the last several weeks about them not playing well on defense and the offense not getting going, I thought they put it relatively all together today. And I thought, even without Jalen Warren, this team proved that this offense can be more than just Jalen Warren, which is a huge, huge takeaway coming out of this football game. The offensive line looked more competent. I'll be interested to see if they switched anything up in the run scheme stuff. Did they run more power? Did they run more gap stuff? Because it certainly looked a lot different, and the Steelers were certainly moving the line of scrimmage more. And then that defense, once you get Joey Porter Jr. back, once Jalen Ramsey gets back fully healthy, once Alex Highsmith gets back healthy, and now that you have Deshaun Elliott back, like this unit can really be a special group, guys. And I think that this Steelers team is going to continue to be a team that gets better and better as the season goes on. The exact opposite from what this team was last year, which is exactly where you want to be if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan right now. All right, man, that'll be it for today's show. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button. I'm so happy that this team was able to get this victory today for the Rooney family. Of course, the late Ambassador Rooney was the ambassador for the United States to Ireland. And they have been laying the groundwork for this game for a very long time. So this was the one on the schedule that Mike Tomlin and the Steelers really wanted to get done for this team and for this ownership family. So I couldn't be happier that the Steelers were able to put together the game that they did today and looked as good as they did heading into their Week 5 bye. We're going to have Victory Monday takeaways for you guys early in the morning tomorrow. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.